Before the bombs fell on Pearl Harbor, America was a nation largely isolated, preferring to observe global conflicts from a safe distance. The Great Depression had gripped the country for a decade, and an interventionist foreign policy was far from the public's mind. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, though acutely aware of the growing threats in Europe and Asia, faced strong isolationist sentiments. American industry, while vast, was geared towards civilian production, and its military, though professional, was small compared to the burgeoning armies of Germany, Japan, and the Soviet Union. The national mood was cautious, focused on domestic recovery, and wary of the immense human and economic cost of global conflict. This era represented a pre-superpower America, a sleeping giant content in its own hemisphere. The morning of December 7, 1941, shattered America's illusion of security. The surprise attack on Pearl Harbor by the Imperial Japanese Navy was a devastating blow, claiming thousands of lives and sinking a significant portion of the Pacific Fleet. This act of aggression instantly unified a divided nation. Isolationist arguments crumbled overnight as a profound sense of outrage swept across the country. Roosevelt's Day of Infamy speech resonated deeply, galvanizing public support for war. Across America's entry into World War II unleashed an industrial capacity unlike anything the world had ever seen. The arsenal of democracy wasn't just a slogan, it was a reality. Factories that once built cars now churned out tanks, aircraft plants expanded exponentially, and shipyards launched vessels at an astonishing rate. The Kaiser shipyards, for instance, famously reduced the time to build a Liberty ship from months to mere days. This rapid conversion was facilitated by a massive government investment in new facilities and a streamlined approach to production. Labor unions and government largely set aside their differences to focus on the war effort. Driven by patriotism and the urgency of the global conflict, the sheer scale of this industrial output would soon overwhelm the Axis powers, demonstrating a decisive advantage that few had anticipated. With millions of men serving overseas, American women stepped into roles traditionally reserved for men, fundamentally changing the nation's workforce. Rosie the Riveter became an iconic symbol of the nearly 6 million women who took on jobs in defense plants, factories, and shipyards. They built planes, operated heavy machinery, and performed countless other tasks essential to the war effort. Beyond industrial jobs, women joined auxiliary military corps like the WWII and WWII, serving as nurses, pilots, mechanics, and administrators, freeing up men for combat roles. This monumental shift not only boosted wartime production, but also challenged deeply ingrained societal norms about gender roles. While many women returned to domestic life after the war, their contributions undeniably paved the way for future advancements in women's rights. World War II spurred an unparalleled era of scientific and technological innovation in the United States. Driven by the urgent demands of war, government funding flowed into research and development like never before. The most famous outcome, of course, was the Manhattan Project, which harnessed the power of the atom, leading to the atomic bomb. But countless other advancements revolutionized warfare and would have lasting civilian impact. Radar technology became crucial for air defense and naval operations. Advances in penicillin and blood plasma dramatically reduced battlefield mortality rates. The development of advanced cryptography, rocket technology, and early computing machines laid the groundwork for the digital age. This rapid scientific progress not only gave the Allies a critical edge, but also established the United States as a global leader in scientific research. Mobilizing for war on such a massive scale required unprecedented financial resources. The U.S. government financed World War II through a combination of increased taxes and borrowing. Income taxes were significantly broadened, bringing millions of Americans into the tax system for the first time. However, a major portion of the war effort was funded through the sale of war bonds. These bonds were marketed with immense patriotic fervor, urging citizens to invest in their country's future. Nationwide campaigns encouraged ordinary Americans to contribute their savings. This broad public participation fostered a sense of collective ownership and sacrifice in the war effort. By the war's end, America's economy remained intact and incredibly robust, ready to fuel post-war growth. Life on the American home front during World War II was a period of both sacrifice and profound unity. Rationing became a way of life, with citizens receiving coupon books for essentials like sugar, coffee, meat, and gasoline. Victory gardens sprang up in backyards and public parks, encouraging self-sufficiency and reducing demand on commercial farms. Scrap drives collected metal, rubber, and paper for recycling into war materials. Communities organized civil defense drills, practiced blackouts, and supported local servicemen and women. Despite the hardships and anxieties, there was a pervasive sense of national purpose. The war touched every family, bringing a shared experience of contribution and determination. This collective effort on the home front was as vital to victory as the battles fought overseas, forging a stronger sense of national identity and resilience. America's entry into World War II immediately reshaped global strategy. Roosevelt understood the necessity of strong alliances, particularly with Great Britain and the Soviet Union. The Europe First strategy prioritized defeating Nazi Germany, recognizing it as the greater long-term threat. This required massive logistical efforts to supply Allied forces across the Atlantic, including the vital Lend-Lease program, which provided aid even before formal entry into the war. Diplomatic conferences, such as Tehran, Yalta, and Potsdam, brought Allied leaders together to coordinate military campaigns, plan for the post-war world, and make difficult decisions about the future of nations. America's role in these high-stakes negotiations demonstrated its growing influence and its commitment to shaping a new global order, a clear departure from its pre-war isolationism. The culmination of the Europe First strategy was D-Day, June 6, 1944, the largest amphibious invasion in history. American, British, and Canadian forces stormed the beaches of Normandy, establishing a crucial foothold on mainland Europe. This monumental undertaking demonstrated America's logistical prowess, military might, and the unwavering courage of its soldiers. From Normandy, Allied forces pushed eastward, fighting through intense battles, steadily liberating France and driving into Germany. American generals like Eisenhower and Bradley led vast armies, showcasing strategic brilliance and tactical innovation. The relentless advance, combined with the Soviet Union's offensive from the east, eventually squeezed Nazi Germany, leading to its unconditional surrender in May 1945. America's role in defeating Nazism solidified its standing as a military power. Simultaneously with the European campaign, the United States fought a brutal war against Imperial Japan across the vast Pacific Ocean. The strategy of island hopping involved seizing strategically important islands, bypassing heavily fortified ones, to gradually move closer to the Japanese mainland. This campaign was characterized by fierce, often hand-to-hand combat against a deeply entrenched enemy. Battles like Guadalcanal, Tarawa, and Okinawa became synonymous with immense sacrifice. The U.S. Navy and Marine Corps developed new tactics for amphibious assaults and jungle warfare. The Pacific War showcased America's ability to wage and sustain war on multiple fronts, projecting its power across half the globe. As the war in the Pacific intensified, President Harry S. Truman faced a momentous decision: whether to use the newly developed atomic bomb to force Japan's surrender and potentially save millions of lives. The bombings of Hiroshima on August 6, 1945, and Nagasaki on August 9 were unprecedented in their destructive power. These events, combined with the Soviet Union's declaration of war, led to Japan's unconditional surrender on August 15, 1945, known as VJ Day. The atomic bomb, a product of American scientific ingenuity and industrial might, demonstrated a terrifying new level of destructive capability. Its use brought an end to the deadliest conflict in human history, but also ushered in the nuclear age, placing America at the forefront of a new global power dynamic and introducing profound ethical questions about warfare. Unlike the devastating economic aftermath many European and Asian nations faced, the United States emerged from World War II with its industrial capacity not only intact, but vastly expanded. and modernized. War production had pulled the country completely out of the Great Depression, generating full employment and accumulating vast capital. American factories were now the most productive in the world. The Bretton Woods Agreement, forged in 1944, established the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency and created institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, largely headquartered in the U.S. and reflecting American economic principles. This economic might allowed the U.S. to embark on initiatives like the Marshall Plan, rebuilding war-torn Europe and simultaneously opening new markets. The immediate aftermath of World War II saw the United States emerge with the most powerful military on Earth, possessing a dominant navy, a formidable air force, and the exclusive knowledge of atomic weapons. This military supremacy, combined with the ideological clash with the Soviet Union, quickly led to the onset of the Cold War. America adopted a policy of containment, establishing military alliances like NATO and projecting its power globally to counter perceived Soviet expansionism. Permanent military bases were established around the world, and defense spending remained high, fueling further technological advancements. Beyond economic and military might, World War II also significantly expanded America's cultural influence. American soldiers and aid workers carried aspects of American life, from jazz music and Hollywood films to Coca-Cola and denim, to every corner of the globe. The post-war era saw an explosion of American popular culture that resonated internationally, often symbolizing freedom, prosperity, and modernity. The values of democracy, individual liberty, and free enterprise, championed by the U.S. during the war, became powerful ideological tools in the emerging Cold War. Educational exchange programs and humanitarian efforts further cemented America's soft power, shaping perceptions and fostering alliances. This cultural reach, combined with its economic and military strength, solidified America's image as a beacon of modernity and a leader on the world stage. In just under 4 years, World War II had fundamentally transformed the United States from a regional power with isolationist tendencies into an undisputed global superpower. Its unparalleled industrial capacity, scientific innovation, military might, and economic dominance reshaped the international order. The war had forced America to shed its isolationism, embrace its leadership role, and commit to global engagement. While the costs were immense, the outcome positioned the U.S. to lead the post-war world, establish international institutions, and shape the geopolitical landscape for decades to come. The legacy of World War II is the story of how a nation, challenged to its core, rose to meet that challenge,